Today is Wednesday, October 27th. It's a special meeting for the FairTV Commission. And I believe the first item of business is a call to order. Is that correct?
Yep.
Or the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge of Allegiance, yeah.
All right, anybody want to lead us through it? I'll go
lead us.
All right,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, would you mind taking us through our agenda?
Yeah, no, happy to. Secretary's report was what I said earlier, but now that we're online, this is a special meeting because we, in error, didn't have the conference line held. Going forward, I'll be sending out the invitations, the agenda having been filed with Town Hall, and next month's meeting will be on November 17th. That's all for the Secretary. And standing reports, production manager's report is next.
Before we jump on that, I believe also on the minutes
Vice
from
Chairman's report prior. Yeah, and approval of prior month's minutes, sorry.
Right, on last month's minutes, I think we have to apparently you can find the recording of our call, and you can post, along with last month's minutes, a link to the recording, and I don't know if you happen to have done that, but we'll figure that out, okay?
I have not, so okay.
So that'll be on you and me to find those minutes, and in the future start posting the minutes, the link to the link to the recording on the minutes for that respective month. Okay.
In the meeting minutes.
Yeah. So when you put together the minutes from the meeting, following the meeting, I guess a couple of days after the call, we can go and get that actual recording. And does anybody know anything about meeting in person? I'd love to do that at some point. Are we still being asked not to? Nobody knows? All right, we'll figure that out too.
I don't know.
Okay, sorry. Go right ahead. I guess we approve the minutes.
I would make a motion to approve the minutes, and then I would need a second to that.
Second it.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We're making progress. Cool. Next.
That would be down to
production manager's report.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, John, I hope I sent out my monthly novella in regards to my notes. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look at them. I'm going to try and make it brief. Just a couple of operational things up front. We've moved to using what's called a edge router to broadcast from the Board of Ed facility to our hub located in Town Hall. What this does is it bypasses the school district's network and relieves them of a security issue by having to leave a hole for us to send our content through for broadcast and streaming and whatnot. We utilized this device for the first time last night, and at the Board of Ed meeting, a 3-hour meeting, which was a good test for it. I have to say I'm not happy with the web image, the streaming image, and that's really the only image I can see in a live format because I don't have a live broadcast monitor at any of our production locations. So I rely on the web stream to, reassure me that we're on the air and audio is going through and all that. We had a couple. There were some times when it buffered it didn't buffer completely out, but it staggered a little bit. Movements got a little sticky, so to speak. And then at one point, there was sort of a stacking thing where the image multiplied a little bit went away quickly and returned to at least, a stable image throughout most of the rest of the evening. I don't know. I'm going to talk to IT because they're the ones that supplied me with this device and see if there's some other. And I'm also going to talk to the district's IT and see if there's another internet access that might be a little more stable or whatever. I don't really know that that's the case, or if there's something that can be done in relation to the performance of the router. Because they're depending on this device to help us be a little more mobile around town. With this device, we can plug in anywhere there's a data point and broadcast and transmit directly to the hub in town hall. So that is a good thing, depending on what our productions evolve into and coverage from different locations. And that's kind of it for the moment. I'm going to go into this thing now about the Zoom room and the application of this year's Cable Advisory Council grant toward replacement of the, not the Zoom room, but towards replacement of the upgrading of the Frontier gear that we transmit to Frontier with, originally installed by AT&T about 11 years ago. They're both, we transmit to 2 channels on Frontier like we do with Optimum. And the hardware, obviously, anybody knows anything about hardware, after 7 years, you're pretty lucky. I feel pretty fortunate that even though it's intermittent, it's still at least, when you reboot it, it works for a while. But it's tough. One day it's not going to work anymore. So we will lose our capability to transmit to Frontier. Now, this is an option. It's not like we're required by law to carry Frontier. And unfortunately, when I tried to get money from the Cable Advisory Council to pay for this upgrade, which is about $22,000 more, they wouldn't do it because they said the money that we get from the Cable Advisory Council of Area 2 comes strictly from Optimum. Now, in my note, in my reports, I mentioned, and if you read it, you'll see that it states that there's no language, first of all, in the state law that set aside this money that we get from the third-party provider Soundview, which totals $100,000, and then it's distributed by the Cable Advisory Council to the 4 towns that participate in what's called town-specific or narrowcasting broadcasts. And if you don't understand narrowcasting, it means you're only broadcasting within your town. And it's, for the town and so on. And then, again, there's a whole lot of history and stuff. But anyway, there's no language in the law. I know this not only because it states it in the law, but I was involved in creating the law. There's no language, and I also went and had a friend who provided me with Soundview. Soundview has to, post its books every year, and they do not set aside funds from any particular source, Dish, Frontier, Optimum, as separate bank accounts. They commingle all their money. So there's nothing separate there about it either. So theoretically, the $100,000 that comes out of the Soundview pot is $100,000 from whatever resources they get their money from. In which case, the reality is it isn't really, but the Cable Advisory Council is sticking to this plan. I don't know exactly why. I then went to the town CFO because in this American Recovery Plan Act, they got $24 million approximately, and they're cutting out $450,000 for modernization and technology, and in that, of course, is the couple of $100,000 they're going to spend on the Zoom rooms that will completely alter our production work, but we will still remain as publishers. And as well, because of the equipment and what we have, we can probably publish and produce other types of content that fit within our capabilities and created by the ordinance. I went to the CFO and I said, look, can we apply for this money for this? This is an upgrade. It's needed. There are Frontier customers in Fairfield. However, one will never know how many because the cable companies consider that information proprietary. I've never been able to find out from Optimum. I've never been able to, Frontier has always been kind of like the silent player in all our towns of the area too. When I talk to people about Frontier, they all have the same equipment, and it's all, marginal or whatever operating. And, when going to Frontier, they say, well, we want you to get this upgrade because the upgrade will make you HD. I mean, we could broadcast, unlike with Optimum, which is a standard definition analog broadcast that gets converted at your home cable box to a digital signal. We could broadcast to Frontier straight HD, and they would broadcast HD to their, for our content to their customers locally. Which in my mind is not a terrible idea. If we did it, maybe we could get, maybe there could be some pressure on Optimum to give us HD. I know that there's infrastructure for PEG access is skeletal. I mean, we recently had the modulators that transmit to Optimum. We had a set of modulators for 10 years, 12 years rather, that were probably 20 years old when I got them, maybe older. So when they replaced them, they were at least 30 plus years. And they finally replaced it with a nice fiber connection that, goes out totally fiber. Before it used to come in, go to coax, and then get converted into fiber box, and then go out. So now it just goes straight out fiber. It still has limitations, but, that's because of its head end and their conversion issues. So in any case, Jared asked me how many people are subscribing to Frontier in Fairfield. Like I said, I don't know. And he didn't seem to think there were very many, and I have to concur. Frontier does not enjoy a wonderful reputation. AT&T was sketchy. That's why they sold it. When they sold it to Frontier, they basically left them a bag of bones to put back together. And they've been trying to rebuild it. And what I think they are doing in discussion with some other folks is they're setting themselves up to be an internet company. They aren't really pushing or hyping their cable channels, or they aren't expanding that capability. But they are trying to sell heavy-duty internet for all the cable cutters and the streamers and whatnot.
Well, so I have a question. This is Patrick. Yep. It might be ignorant as an outsider, but is this piece of equipment something that would be relevant to use in the Zoom capability technological landscape going forward?
Zoom, what it has to do with is whether the meetings that are captioned that we publish on these, which will be Zoom meetings, whether or not they get to our Frontier customers.
Okay, so is this a piece of equipment that's going to stay online for a long time and be used by us to send our signal to everybody, regardless of Frontier?
All the Frontier customers.
Just Frontier.
Well, we have separate transmission structures for Optimum and Frontier.
Okay, so that was kind of an ignorant question, but that answers the question.
No.
Yeah. Let me jump in on, because I had an opportunity to connect with Jerry just to learn a little bit about all this stuff.
Sure.
And so what it all boils down to is that, Jerry has exhausted every avenue that he can think of, and I would venture to say he knows more than I do, and I'm not, maybe someone on the call has other ideas, but to get the money for this, the only option that seems available at this point is to literally go to Fairfield and say, Fairfield, if you want us to be able to broadcast on Frontier, we have to, get our hands on $20,000 somehow. And he went to the CFO of the town, and that didn't really seem like an option. Is that correct, Jerry?
Well, as I was saying, he didn't seem to think that the customer base was large enough to justify. By the way, it's probably about $23,000, because what it is replacing the transmission gear, but also redoing the feed all the way out of the building to the local hub, and also structuring our feed at their hub to be HD, and that's where that's at. The one thing that does happen is if we wanted to try it and find equipment that matches what we have, we're really not going to find it because they don't make it anymore too much, and B, we don't get any service on it. There's no contract, no backup service. It's just like buying a thing in a box and hoping that it works and continues to work. Now, these machines run 24/7 every day. So they got to be reliable pieces of equipment that we do have service for. And if the choice is not getting the upgrade and telling the people that watch Frontier, well, I'm sorry, we can't afford the equipment. We're going to have however, you can catch us online at, our FairTV web streams, and of course you can always utilize our video on demand site. So it's not like people will be without their FairTV. They just won't get it on Frontier. And that's true with Dish for a long time. They didn't carry public access. So it's not unusual that a customer, depending on what cable company they're with, did or did not get public access content. In this day and age, it's just too possible, so, it's not as rare. But again, that's the situation. If we don't get the money from the town, and we can't seem to change the mind of the Cable Advisory Council, then yes, Frontier will be dropped as one of our cable partners. But again, all the viewers will not miss out. They can still take advantage of the other platforms that we do offer.
Thank you, Jerry. Does everyone follow what we're talking about here? Any questions?
Nope.
Makes sense.
So I think the sort of bottom line is, if we don't have anywhere to go get the money and the cable company won't, give us the money, the next step is for us to say to Frontier customers, we're really sorry, but here's the scenario, which Jerry just described, and if you want to write a letter to Frontier to explain to them that they need to support this, that would be welcome. And, then if Frontier will go ahead and supply this equipment in order to get on their platform, I think it's, that's great. But I think that's the only way that I know of at this point. Or they can write to, the town. But like Jerry said, most people have access to internet, and we can show them that, or they can go to Optimum. That's an option, and in the content, it was always there. It'll always be available. Worst case scenario, somebody can go to the library and review it. So without having
this summer, and yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. There still is an archive at the library, but we have put every single FairTV meeting that we have covered since we started on our YouTube VOD site. So anybody can go to our FairTV Education or FairTV Government YouTube site, and they can go all the way back to 2010 find a meeting, as long as we covered it, So that's about.
Given that, I can't imagine anybody's going to want to.
Pardon?
I can't imagine anybody's going to want to come forth with money, given that that's the case in this day and age. That's just where I come at it. I'm a finance person. I can't imagine who's going to want to step forward with that. But it seems like in other cases, you can't get games of the team, right? You have to write to the cable provider.
Yeah.
Or to the team ownership or something. So I think that's the answer, Alex. I mean,
yeah.
Right?
Is everybody comfortable with that position?
Yes.
Totally.
There is just one thing to keep in mind if you're going to write Frontier. Remember that, like I said, this equipment's been turning on and off and being booted and rebooted on an almost daily basis for quite some time. So if somebody says, well, gee, I never got it anyway. The reality is it's a possibility that sometime in the evening when the system failed and I'm not in the town hall or whatever, they didn't get their FairTV. But that's just more of a reality in relation to why, if they want to, Frontier wants to stay in the game with this particular product, which perhaps they don't. I mean, it's a free, the channel service is free. It's worth a hell of a lot more than, the bandwidth is worth a hell of a lot more than a couple of pieces of equipment and whatnot. So believe me, I suppose if Optimum had the opportunity as well, they would prefer to sell what marginal bandwidth they give us, even if, and that's why, we don't really expect them to bump us to HD. That's money, So, that's, I would, people, if Frontier subscribers want to harass Frontier or send them letters, all power to them. But this is just another reason why we think is, the cable company, you should upgrade it so we can get this content. That's all.
Yeah, well, I would also say that, look, we're also at a point now where we're, okay, the benefit of if we upgrade with Frontier is now we'll have HD, but at the same time we're going to this, Zoom format, which at that point it doesn't even matter,
Yeah, no,
so
there's a lot of variables that, the whole discussion, although I bring it up because, my feeling is that this is going to go by the wayside. But we can't just let it fall without some discussion and, reaching out and whatnot. We have to take our steps. And, we're just, we're not a for-profit. We make no money. There's no revenue, at the moment. I suppose we could do a fundraiser to replace this equipment if we really wanted to. No, that's another option.
Sounds like you've done the due diligence, and it's where five of us get to. So that's the situation. I don't want to beat it to death because the only thing is that there's a second part to this, and that is we now have the money that we received from the Cable Advisory Council from our grant that we applied for back in January of this year. And at the time, I was totally unaware of this Zoom room thing, or, this was a new idea. It didn't really come up until they did the American Recovery Act deal. So, and this deal drastically changes what I asked for in the grant. Now, we were aware of it in some way, in that they wanted to, the town wanted to evolve into the capability of hybrid meetings, people in the room, people not in the room. And at the time I actually spoke with Alex, and I got some information about a device called an ATM, which basically is a little transmitter, encoder deal that sends content to like the web stream of your choice. We could create. The thought was that we would create a series of YouTube channels
because the thing is the town is wants to do every meeting that they hold in town. That's 60 meetings every month. They want to work within this format. And how they want to make them public or available to the public, we could handle, FairTV could take that on as a responsibility. And at the same time, like I said, we could set up some YouTube channels and in the course of a day, if they wanted to get serious about these meetings and whatnot and held them at more reasonable times, and also, with a little bit of coordination, we could probably broadcast 9 meetings a week, at least, maybe more, utilizing this concept. But it would require an operator, and this is where the town puts the foot down. They don't want to pay for any additional personnel. They expect that with this Zoom room thing, that the recording secretaries will also be the Zoom room host. Now, I've had several conversations with Dave Kelly, the IT director, who does this for the town. He handles a lot of the primary town meetings as the WebEx host. And believe me, you can't take notes on the meeting and monitor the WebEx at the same time. It just doesn't work. You get half notes. You don't get whole notes. And there is a requirement. You can say, okay, well, the thing's being recorded. Can't the secretary just take the notes from that? Well, there's a requirement that a live secretary has to participate in the actual event and take notes. And they use the recording as backup. So we'll have to see how that works out. We don't know if that's going to work out. But they are going ahead with this. I don't know. They're probably going to spend a couple of $100,000 at least. And we will be the publishers of these events, at least the primary ones that we do now. And we will probably, help them with their archival. And maybe, like I said, we'll set up an additional YouTube site where we can do video on demand for the 55 other meetings that will become content that aren't at the moment. So going back to the Cable Advisory Council grant, we got $13,725 in our grant this year. I asked for a new TriCaster Mini, which is basically our production studio in a box. We plug our cameras into it. It records, it supplies graphics, it takes multiple cameras, it does switching, it does the audio, it does everything. Originally developed for the military, and they've evolved into this whole industry. And they're the leaders, TriCaster, New Tech. So I bought a Mini, which is one of their pieces of equipment. We have one already that we're not using, because actually it's more complicated than what we're using. We're using some older pieces of equipment. We have 3 what they call TriCaster V40s. They work great. They do the job. They're simple to use. They're easy to get train new people on. The Mini is a different story. It's IP based. It's got a lot of little parts and participles. The way you generate from everything from bringing the cameras into the system to generating graphics. It really does require a training program that costs about $3,000. But we've used it. We've learned a few things, but it doesn't really ever get used to its full capability. It has rear screen, CGI capability, and a lot of other things, and which we could use if we had that kind of content, but we don't. But I am going to buy. If we're not going to invest in this, if they aren't going to let us spend the money on the upgrade for Frontier, then I probably have to buy this production device, because if someday the ones we're using will begin to fail, and I'll need these, and we will learn more effectively how to use them. And in a way, they may not even, we'll just evolve into them. That's not a concern of mine for me. but the other equipment that we were going to buy was going to be this little ATM studio sort of structure, a camera, laptop, the ATM device, about $2,500. And but I don't see any need to buy that anymore because I haven't gotten any word on, how they want to broadcast these other 55 meetings, if they want to do it at all. And I have to spend this money before the end of the year. So my thought was, instead of getting the ATM device, that we would buy a laptop, which we do need, and the laptops, the type that we're using, because of the supply issue, have gone up to about $1,500. And I thought I'd buy another LED light that was with the remainder of the money. And so that's actually a request to you guys to give me authorization to repurpose that money. The Cable Advisory Council will let me buy these items. They will authorize these changes in the grant because I've done it in the past, and it isn't Frontier related. I don't really see any problem with your authorization to expend money on a new Lenovo laptop 420. And I haven't really picked out a light yet, but depending on what I can get with the $700, if I can get maybe one or two new LEDs, I would purchase that. And that's basically that conundrum.
Sounds good.
So the question is that are we all in agreement that do we want to take a vote on that? You can go ahead and repurpose funds to purchase a laptop?
I'm going to buy the TriCaster, laptop, and lights.
Motion to approve.
A second.
Okay.
Okay. So let's take a step back. Does everybody have any questions about this? Is everybody good to? Sorry, go ahead. Anybody have any questions about this before we vote? No? Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, Patrick. You made a motion to approve.
Yeah, that's all right. I made the motion. You seconded, and as chairman,
let's have a vote.
Call the
all
roll,
those in
right?
favor.
So,
all those in favor? Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
All right. The motion carries. Jerry, go right ahead.
Okay, there you go. Now, just one last thing here. We have taken on a third producer. His name is Ryan Tyler. He actually used to work for us before. He's very good. And I need this third producer because I sort of have to spread out how much money these guys are making to avoid having to the tax burden and everything, and not have necessarily official employees and keep them as freelancers. And so I hope that is okay with everybody. It's legal and everything. But that's the situation within that. And also we're getting more and more special meetings in this. And this is, unlike this meeting that FairTV is covering, they cost us money. For instance, we've got a special Board of Ed town hall they want us to cover at Fairfield Woods and put it out live. And also in November, the annual inaugurations that only come up at, when there's voting. So we got to cover that extra. And there may be a third thing from the Board of Ed. Now, granted, these don't cost us that much individually, but we still have to look at this. We still don't have a schedule from January 22 to July of 22. And in that schedule, of course, will be the budget and the hearings and all that sort of stuff, which generally adds another 15 or so meetings to our complement every year. Now, I budget for it as best I can, but when we get called upon to do special meetings and whatnot, that takes away from what I budgeted. And so it may well come to be that by March, or at least by January, end of January, when I get all the new dates for all the meetings we do cover, I'll be able to project out with the budget at hand and see where we are. In which case, we may have to ask the town for some additional freelance money. Now, again, this has happened once before, and they gave it to us. I don't think we'll need that much. It could be as little as $1,000 or so. I don't think too much more than that. I'm not looking for a huge bunch of money, but we may have to ask them for that difference. Now, there is some play in our current budget with a couple of line items. For instance, with our materials line, if we don't really spend anything out of that, that's about $1,500 that we don't necessarily, we take it out of fees and professional services, but as long as we don't go over on our whole account with the town, we're good. We aren't in any trouble, or in the red, so to speak. So, there are ways that we could probably avoid seeking money, but I would have to have a pretty good idea by no later than February-ish, because it takes about a month to get on the calendar if you want to ask for money. Now, this is a small amount of money. I don't know if they have to vote on it or not, but we would have to go to the first selectwoman's office if this comes up. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm doing everything I can, but we try to cover what we can with the 5 boards that we have. Sometimes the Board of Finance's audit committee asks us to cover them, but they usually partner that up with one of their meetings, so it's all within one meeting, or at least within that time frame. But other times, like this week we had 3 special meetings, one from the Board of Selectmen, one from the Board of Finance, and one from the Board of Ed. So, now granted, I did the Board of Ed last night because my regular producer couldn't get here because of the weather. I was surprised they even held it, considering they have the remote capability in general, but they did. And, but that's kind of the way it moves along. So, and also there's this new entity, the Charter Revision Commission, which we are required to cover because these people are talking about revising the town charter, and they will be doing it next November. And so these meetings have to be presented. They have to be presented live. They have to be, on our web stream, on our video on demand. So that right now, that could be another 15 meetings all by itself. So there you are. That's basically where that's at. And so there was one other thing that I was talking to Paula about, which was a little outside our regular thing, but I know Paula has experience with television, magazine format, and whatnot. And the town has put together this Fairfield Commission on Disabilities. It's through the Bigelow Senior Center. And I was thinking that it might make a good little program, to go in and have a little interview and maybe do some background B-roll and talk to people a little bit about it. Now, as well, it might be an opportunity to open the door at Sacred Heart with the student population there that's in the media game. Maybe get them to come in as crew, camera, whatever. Because I'm always trying to think of ways to bring these entities in. I haven't had any success with it, but perhaps coming from a commissioner, producer, maybe it'll be a little more appealing to them or not. I don't know. But I'm putting that out there as something that the commissioners can discuss and perhaps take on. And, there you go.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it could be a good little piece to, help them out and it's a good sounds like a lovely program to, work with, to help find volunteers to work in this capacity with elder people and disability and, whatever, people who are willing, time on their hands.
I mean, I've always generally loved the idea of FairTV producing some sort of wholesome content that's just, about Fairfield in some way, shape, or form. I think there's a couple of kind of obvious things. Number one, it's going to take a little bit of money, but there's a lot of equipment. Listen, when I lived up in Boston, one of my friends who would work with me filming stuff worked for the local public access television station in Newton, I believe it was, and because he worked for them, he had access to the equipment. He was always making something, be it a music video or this or that. And I'm not saying that's what FairTV should do, music videos, but the point is that there's value in, access just to the gear itself, and provided like that, some young producer or director gets to make something and it can go on FairTV and be, good content for the time. Sure. I mean, from the moment I kind of walked through the proverbial FairTV door, which quickly closed due to the pandemic, I've always wanted to see that happen. And one of the big issues
about is the public access side of P, E, and G. Public access, educational, and government access. Now, FairTV is only an E and G concept. Soundview has the public access, but they have totally failed that responsibility. I mean, I don't know if anybody has ever watched Soundview, but they have totally failed the public access quotient of why they get $1 million or so a year. I'm familiar with a lot of public access stations, and the one you're talking about in Newton and in Falmouth and in Ithaca, New York, and in Nantucket, and in Atlanta, Georgia, all around the country. They have far more robust, they've created these centers with computer and internet and everything going on. Soundview has done none of that. They basically collect money for salary and pay rent, and then they offer these little bogus elements. Now, we can, even with our ordinance, we can make something like this, run it on our e-channel, and even on our government channel as part of, government service. And as long as it doesn't have an elected official in it, because that's the hook.
Okay, learned that lesson. Thank you.
But I mean, there's plenty of people. I did a wonderful little video over there a few years back at the Bigelow Center, and I didn't have a single elected official. I met the various people that ran little departments and people that come, and the citizens that took advantage of it. It's a little half-hour piece. I mean, it's a little public access. It's not too fancy, but it's a nice little journey through what was then the Fairfield Senior Center, and they were upgrading it at the time, so they wanted to show that off. And, just prior to the Bigelow Trust coming in and becoming partners with them. And on that note, Bigelow might come in with some funding for this project.
Well, there you have it.
Is go over and talk to Julie DeMarco over there, and let her know that we're interested in doing it, but maybe we need $500 or something like that to produce it. And they may just
Julie DeMarco is part of who?
The Bigelow Senior Center.
Okay.
And she's also heading up this new commission.
Okay, sorry, I heard you say that earlier. I just wanted to make sure I knew who we were talking about. Okay.
So if like I said, if Paula, granted, Paula, I'm asking you, you don't have to do it, but if she wanted to take something like this on, that's where I would suggest she started by reaching out to Julie and, letting her know what she might want to do, and if she'd be willing to help us out, My guess is that
Sure.
they'd love to have some back, they'd love to have a little story on it. I don't know how eager they might be to give us some money, but, they might. It's not that much money. And again, we can maybe make an inroad with, either at Fairfield University or at Sacred Heart. When I went over to do that piece on juvenile crime, I met the people that run the theater there, and one of the women that works there is also interfaces with the cinema department. Now, she said I told her, I said, I'm looking for producers. Oh, I'll put it up, baby, I'm sure. I said, we pay. I gave her the whole spiel. But I haven't really heard anything back from her. But it doesn't mean that I couldn't follow up with another concept, because, college kids or any kid doesn't, they don't get any value out of covering town meetings. What they do get value out of is content like this. So the reality is we might be able to entice somebody with some more interesting content. And that's where I'm coming from on that thought.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think also it'll give you access to some people who, as they get comfortable with the gear, if you need somebody to cover a meeting, they might be willing to do it, and it might be a way for them to make a few bucks and for you to have a roster of people, in case someone can't make it,
Right. No, exactly. So I'm extremely willing to help get that door open. I just in the past, myself alone working on it, I don't think moved the various academic heads and whatnot. I don't mean to get snooty, sounds weird here, but, it does help to have upper-level people, or at least, what people consider that part of the play. They look at it as being more of a responsible, thing. But to have a commissioner involved, if they wanted to do it, would be pretty helpful. And I would I would work with them as a producer person and hope to see what kind of contacts I could make, or they could do it themselves. Like I said, I think a lot of times when you call these places out, I'm the FairTV commissioner, I might get a little more of an ear than the FairTV manager. So I don't know.
Certainly qualifies for new business. Duly noted. Sorry, I like the idea, and I'm happy to make phone calls to anybody. Paul, you were saying?
Well, maybe we could work together and do it as co-produce or something.
Maybe we need to give Jerry like a more exciting title. That way, when he calls, they're like, "Oh, the FairTV king is on the phone."
Chief operator.
I refer to myself from time to time as executive producer, but
that sounds good. I like that.
Well, in the world of meeting coverage, it doesn't really mean.
So let me just understand. We're hoping that we would reach out to, say, Sacred Heart, because I do have some connections at Sacred Heart, and I know the guy who does video production over there. So the idea would be to reach out to him and say, we're interested to have maybe some of your production students volunteer to do a package on this new volunteer commission that's happening in Fairfield, and the trade-off is they get the experience of doing the interviews and putting a piece together, and then we'll air it on FairTV. And
then they have something for their reel, and whatnot, that's viable.
Right. Okay.
And let them know that, you're involved. And, if you know the guy, he knows you, and so, that's it. That's got a little, as they say.
I'm happy. I think that I would feel better first chatting with Julie DeMarco and getting my head around what the story is and who the players are and all that, and then reaching out to Sacred Heart if everybody is okay with that plan.
I think it sounds awesome. Yeah, I think to have a handle on the program that you're highlighting is critical, and Julie's a nice lady, and she, like I said, I think she'd be open to it. And again, you might be able to get some production money for them that as it evolves, maybe you can offer the kids, the students, a small stipend in the end.
That's the thing that I don't understand. So where would this money be coming from, hypothetically?
Well, the Bigelow Senior Center is funded by the town in relation to a trust as well by the Bigelow Tea Company. They're now I don't know what, they're willing to, they've invested in the property, I believe, a little bit, but, and they've got their name on the building, and so they're partners with the town.
The family you're asking? Sorry.
Pardon?
Who was the question about? My son interrupted for a second. I got distracted. Sorry.
Okay.
So my question was, hypothetically, who are we thinking would potentially give money to this project?
Right, yeah.
That was my question, and Jerry was starting to explain.
I don't know if it's a given. I'm just saying that there could be an opportunity. We're working with the facility. We're trying to highlight their programs in a positive way. But Bigelow knows as well as anybody else that nothing is really free. And, perhaps, like I say, in their promotion, in their budget, they may have a small amount of money. I don't think we need bags of money, but if they could, if when you sit down and lay out your plan and you say, well, gee, perhaps we can get volunteers, but if not, we may have to pay them, but depending on the production schedule and edit post work and all that. Now, we have a desktop in our office that is outfitted with DaVinci Pro, and that's like the state-of-the-art editing suite these days. And I'm learning how to use it. I've worked on it.
I don't know. I that's an argument there. I think Premiere, it's all Premiere for me, Jerry. So DaVinci I hear is the best for coloring, but I'm sorry, I'm a little biased, but no.
It's fantastic for color correction. Absolutely on the money.
No, I think it sounds awesome, and I think that the enticing part to these guys is portfolio pieces, access to equipment, access to programs that they might not have. I think you kind of want it to be edited on the machine at, FairTV, because it's just kind of good to keep it on that machine, in my opinion. I think, Paula, if you're comfortable reaching out to that person at was it Nancy Del Marco? Was that it?
Julie DeMarco is the person who's heading up the commission. The person at Sacred Heart is the guy who runs their television production class.
Sorry, what was his name again?
His name's Greg Golda.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's awesome, and why not? And these guys need stuff to do. They like real stuff. I think it's wonderful. So, hey, maybe.
There's certainly a lot of content that could be generated out of the operation and life of Fairfield.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to reach out.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right.
Moving on. The good of the order.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Alex,
sounds good.
Do you have something for the good of the order?
I don't know. Do I?
I thought that the comparison of the software was an item that was served for the good of the order. So with that,
I was just being a little silly there, but yeah, in case anybody wants to know, I think the real ticket is to have Premiere for editing and DaVinci Resolve for coloring, and then you'll be perfect. So
I'll have to find a little money to buy a Premiere suite then.
It's $50 a month, so but I think DaVinci can edit.
Now I know you do a lot of work with the cloud, and I got to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of cloud relationships, clubs. That's really all I think that the cloud is a club. And we can buy, decent-sized desktop drives. It'll hold 4 terabytes, and you don't need the cloud. And actually, $50 a month out of the Fairfield budget is something we have to budget. And but whatever. It all works.
No, I think. Look, I think if you have the gear there, it should be used. If DaVinci's a great program, so I think it would be cool. Again, I think the sell to the, as Jerry kind of mentioned, and we all kind of I think know, but the sell to the kids at Sacred Heart is you get to produce something outside of school, okay, that is for the real world, which is a good thing. You have access to some equipment that you might not otherwise have access to. There's some work that might come out of it with just covering meetings, and it's not glamorous, but it's work. And if you want to make a few bucks while you're at school, hey, it's not the worst thing. A lot of people have jobs while they're at school. Maybe you can have one that's in this field that you want to go into. And then for Jerry, it's, and for FairTV, it's somebody who can, pick up the ball if somebody can't make it, and film a meeting, or if it's a special event or this or that. And then honestly, go ahead. Sorry, Jerry.
No, I was just going to say, years ago I hired a guy by the name of Saif Syed. He was my first guy, and he worked in the probate office as well on the computers. The other day, I got an email from him, and he said, I just got a big promotion at my job at Goldman Sachs, and they're going to probably call you about my work with FairTV, and I almost fell out of my chair.
That's awesome. That's tremendous. I love it.
He's been with Goldman now about 5 years. He probably makes more money than all of us on the phone right now.
And you taught him everything you know, Jerry.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think if there's nothing else to chat about, or how are we? We're good with the discussion on equipment that we're kind of holding right now on doing anything, and just, and then as far as potential new fun stuff goes, that's Paula has offered to reach out to the Bigelow Center and Sacred Heart following, if it kind of leads into a good place. And then, we discussed the benefits of Adobe Premiere and DaVinci Resolve, and I think we had a great meeting. And is there anything else to talk about?
Well, there's just one thing. I'm going to be preparing the invoices and whatnot for the purchase of the TriCaster, the laptop, and the lights, and so I'll be giving you that shortly so we can get them on order, and you have to sign off on them. So.
It would be my pleasure.
Voted on, approved. It'll be in the agenda. It'll be in the minutes coming around. And motion to adjourn? Or did you have something, Alex? I'm sorry.
No. So just last thing is, after this meeting, the recording will be posted. You and I will link up, Patrick, to figure out where it's posted again, and then you can copy that link to the minutes for next month, to this month's minutes.
Roger.
All right. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will adjourn. Have a great month. We'll see you guys all next week at the regular FairTV. Next month at the regular FairTV meeting.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Talk to you.
Thanks, Mark. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye, guys.
Good night.